The first story AI sold to business was simple. Replace white-collar work, replace consultants, replace expensive human services. But now the AI business is moving in a very strange direction. The most advanced AI companies are starting to build something that looks a lot like the consulting business. OpenAI has launched its own deployment company. Anthropic is building an enterprise AI services company with Blackstone, Hellman & Friedman, and Goldman Sachs. And Reuters has reported that investment vehicles tied to OpenAI and Anthropic have been in talks to buy AI services firms, pulling in more engineers and consultants. So this is not just another company announcement. It shows that the AI business is moving from one layer to the next. The first layer was model access, ChatGPT, Claude, APIs, enterprise accounts. The second layer is deployment control, connecting models to enterprise data, permissions, workflows, compliance, audits, and business metrics. This episode is not about which model has the better benchmark. It is about a bigger business question. If strong models become easier to buy, where does the real moat move next? Start with OpenAI. On the 11th of May, 2026, OpenAI announced the OpenAI Deployment Company. This is not just a partner program. It is not just customer success. OpenAI says the company is majority owned by OpenAI, launches with more than $4 billion of initial investment, and is designed to help organizations build and deploy systems around intelligence. The key role inside this company is the forward-deployed engineer. That phrase matters. This is not someone sitting at headquarters writing documentation. It is someone embedded inside the customer organization, solving concrete problems with the customer, and connecting models to internal data, tools, control systems, and business processes. OpenAI also agreed to acquire Tomorrow. Tomorrow is expected to bring around 150 forward-deployed engineers and deployment specialists. That move tells you something. OpenAI does not just want to sell ChatGPT Enterprise. It does not just want to sell APIs. It wants to buy field deployment capacity. If you draw the structure, the logic is clear. At the top sits OpenAI's model layer. Below that is DeployCo's engineering layer. Below that are private equity, consulting, and systems integration partners. And at the bottom are the real workflows inside enterprises. OpenAI wants to control more than the moment a model is called. It wants influence over the whole path, from model to operating system. Anthropic's move is slightly different. On the 4th of May, 2026, Anthropic announced a new enterprise AI services company with Blackstone, Hellman & Friedman, and Goldman Sachs. The target is not only large enterprises, because large enterprises already tend to have systems integrators like Accenture, Deloitte, and PwC. Anthropic says this new company is aimed more at mid-sized businesses. That is an important gap. Mid-sized companies often have real operations, real workflows, and real cost pressure. They want AI, but they may not have a strong internal AI team. They can buy Claude, but they may not know how to put Claude into core operations. Anthropic gives healthcare operations as one example: documentation, coding, prior authorization, and compliance review. None of that is simple question answering. It touches privacy, liability, workflows, insurance processes, clinicians, and IT systems. The hard part is not whether the model can write a sentence. The hard part is whether the model can enter a highly regulated operating system. So Anthropic's services company is really a capital-backed deployment channel around Claude. OpenAI looks more like it is building a deployment arm it controls. Anthropic looks more like it is using Wall Street capital and enterprise relationships to move Claude into the operating layer of mid-sized companies. Why would these AI labs do something this heavy? Because the enterprise AI bottleneck has changed. The bottleneck is no longer whether a company can access a model. Most enterprises can now buy models that are good enough to test. The hard questions are different. Where is the data? Who is allowed to access it? Can model outputs enter real systems? Who is accountable when the model fails? Will employees change how they work? Can security, compliance, and audits pass? Is the project actually lowering cost, or is it just a beautiful demo? Deloitte's enterprise AI research gives useful context. AI access is rising. More projects are moving toward production. But far fewer companies are truly reimagining the business. Many companies can show productivity and efficiency gains. Fewer can prove revenue gains. And mature governance for autonomous agents is still limited. That is the deployment gap. Enterprises are not missing a chat box. They are missing the ability to turn a model into a working system. That requires data engineering, permissioning, systems integration, workflow redesign, security audits, employee training, and business metric tracking. Whoever fills that gap gets closer to the largest enterprise AI budgets. Not just one fee for a model call, but the long-term money companies spend to change workflows, cut costs, raise productivity, and control risk. This also explains why private equity is showing up here. Private equity is not just financial capital in this story. It is distribution. Firms like Blackstone, Hellman & Friedman, Goldman Sachs, TPG, Advent, Bain Capital, and Brookfield influence large portfolios of companies. They do not just invest money. They influence management, budgets, operational change, and margin targets. In the past, private equity firms sent operating consultants, procurement experts, and finance teams into portfolio companies. Now, they can add AI deployment to that operating playbook. Forward-deployed engineers, workflow engineers, data governance teams, and compliance teams that move AI projects from pilot into production. That is extremely valuable for OpenAI and Anthropic. They do not have to sell software seats one company at a time from zero. Through private equity, they can enter real companies in batches, see real workflows, and learn which AI use cases can repeat and which ones are only demos. So, this is not simply a financing story. It is the connection point between capital and compute. Compute created the frontier models. Capital is now helping those models find a path into the enterprise. This is why Accenture works in the title, but the boundary matters. OpenAI and Anthropic are not becoming Accenture overnight. Accenture's core strength is not knowing one model. It is delivery scale, industry relationships, systems integration, workflow transformation, change management, and a global talent network. So, the AI labs are becoming Accenture is not literal. It means AI labs are moving into part of the market that Accenture, Deloitte, Capgemini, and PwC have monetized for years: enterprise technology implementation and business process change. If you want the company that looks closer to OpenAI DeployCo's operating model, Palantir is a better comparison. Palantir's forward-deployed model sends engineers into customer environments, connects data, software, and business problems, and then turns repeatable patterns into products. What makes OpenAI and Anthropic different is that they bring frontier models and model roadmaps directly into the customer site. Traditional consulting firms have customer relationships and delivery capacity, but they do not own the strongest model layer. AI labs have model capability and brand, but they do not yet have a massive field delivery machine. Now the two sides are starting to cooperate, compete, and depend on each other. Capgemini's investment in the OpenAI deployment company is a good signal. Traditional consultancies are not simply being disrupted. They may become investors, partners, distribution channels, and competitors at the same time. So this fight cannot be reduced to OpenAI versus Anthropic. The real question is, who sits closest to the customer's workflow? Frontier labs have model roadmaps, brand, and APIs. Consulting and systems integration firms have customer relationships and delivery capacity. Cloud providers have compute, data platforms, and enterprise contracts. Palantir, ServiceNow, Salesforce, Microsoft, and SAP already sit inside enterprise workflows. PE-backed service vehicles have capital, portfolio access, and deployment teams. Open source models and lower-cost Chinese models keep putting pressure on the model layer. Gartner forecasts worldwide AI spending to reach roughly $2.59 trillion in 2026, up 47% year over year. Forecasts are not exact facts. But the direction matters. AI budgets are not just model subscriptions. They also flow into infrastructure, software, data engineering, security governance, systems integration, vertical applications, and workflow redesign. If frontier AI labs stay only at the API layer, they may leave the larger budget pool to cloud providers, consultancies, systems integrators, and vertical software companies. Moving into deployment is a way to get closer to that larger enterprise AI spend. At the same time, Epoch AI's data gives another backdrop. The gap between leading open-weight models and closed frontier models has been narrowing. That finding has methodological limits, and it does not mean closed models have no advantage. But it does suggest that if model capability becomes easier to approach, the more defensible layer may shift toward deployment, data, governance, and workflow ownership. Here is the important misunderstanding to avoid. AI services are not just prompt consulting. The valuable deployment work happens when models enter the operating systems of specific industries. In healthcare, AI is not just writing a better summary. It touches documentation, coding, prior authorization, compliance review, clinician workflow, and patient privacy. Mistakes can create real liability. In finance, DeployCo points to BBVA expanding ChatGPT Enterprise across 25 countries and 120,000 employees. The core question in finance is not whether everyone can chat. It is permissions, audits, risk controls, customer data, and cross-border compliance. In industrial and manufacturing settings, DeployCo also points to John Deere. The value of industrial AI often sits in equipment, maintenance, supply chains, quality control, field operations, and edge data. Here, AI looks more like an operating system upgrade than an office co-pilot. That is why AI labs are moving into deployment. The more vertical, complex, regulated, and operational the use case becomes, the less the model alone is enough. Enterprises need a system that can be deployed, audited, maintained, and repeated. There is also a useful US-China lens here. On the US side, the path looks like the financialization of AI deployment, frontier model companies, private equity capital, consulting networks, and enterprise software budgets coming together to build a new deployment machine. On the China side, pressure on the model layer may arrive earlier and harder. DeepSeek making a 75% price cut on V4 Pro Permanent is one signal. Chinese enterprise customers may also care more about cost, outcomes, and deployment than frontier branding. The evidence on this comparison still needs more work, so we should not overstate it. But the direction is clear. The US may monetize deployment through capital and services. China may commoditize the model layer through low-cost models and outcome delivery. Different routes? Same conclusion. The model is no longer the whole business. For the last 2 years, the AI story has mostly been about models. Who has more parameters? Who scores higher on benchmarks? Who has the longer context window? Who reasons better? But when enterprises actually pay, the questions change. Who can enter my data? Who understands my workflow? Who can pass the audit? Who can scale the pilot across the company? Who can prove ROI? Who is accountable when something breaks? That is the change represented by OpenAI, DeployCo, and Anthropic's Enterprise AI Services Company. They are not simply starting to do consulting. They are fighting for the next layer of the AI value chain. The model is the first layer. APIs and products are the second. The real enterprise moat may begin after that: deployment, data, workflow, governance, capital, and long-term customer relationships. So the next AI war may not be decided by which model is the smartest in isolation. It may be decided by who can turn the model into a system that enterprises actually run every day. In other words, the next AI moat is not the model alone. It is model plus deployment, plus data, plus workflow, plus governance, plus capital,